Namo Buddhaya, the Satasahasrika Prajnaparamita Sutram, the large sutra in perfect wisdom. The 29th chapter is written in the text not from the beginning, written from what is written. Gift of Dharma. Having made that gift of Dharma common to all beings, he dedicates it to the supreme enlightenment, endowed with these attributes, etc. No hesitation with regard to deep dharmas. Moreover, the irreversible Bodhisattva has no hesitation or doubt with regard to deep dharmas. Subhuti. For what reason has the irreversible Bodhisattva no hesitation, perplexity, or doubt with regard to deep dharmas? Lord, the irreversible Bodhisattva doesn't review any dharma from form to enlightenment with regard to which he should have hesitation, perplexity, or doubt. Friendly deeds of body, voice, mind. Moreover, the irreversible Bodhisattva is endowed with gentle deeds of body, and his thoughts are free from hostility for all beings, endowed with these attributes, etc. Moreover, the irreversible Bodhisattva is constantly and always endowed with friendly deeds of body, speech, and mind, endowed with these attributes, etc. One doesn't meet with the 5 hindrances. Moreover, the irreversible Bodhisattva doesn't meet with the 5 hindrances, with sensuous desire, ill will, sloth, and torpor, excitedness, and sense of guilt or doubt, endowed with these attributes. Loss of all latent tendencies to ignorance, etc. Moreover, the irreversible Bodhisattva doesn't have in any way whatsoever the latent biases towards evil, endowed with these attributes, etc. Mindfulness and self-possession. Moreover, whether the irreversible Bodhisattva goes out or comes back, his mind doesn't wander, but his mindfulness is fixed before him. Mindfully he comes, goes, walks about, stands, sits, and lies down. When he lifts up or puts down his foot on the ground, he knows that he does, endowed with these attributes, etc. Cleanliness of the robe he wears, etc. Moreover, the robe of the irreversible Bodhisattva is free from lies. His habits are clean, he is salubrious, smells clean, and his afflictions are few, endowed with these attributes, etc. The 80,000 families of worms cannot arise in his body. Moreover, the 80,000 families of worms which men have in their bodies and which eat their bodies, they do not exist at all in the body of the irreversible Bodhisattva. And why? Because his wholesome roots have lifted him above all the world and are the most excellent in all the world. For that reason, the Bodhisattva doesn't have this 80,000 families of the worms in his body, and as those wholesome roots of his go on increasing, and to that extent he acquires in due course the perfect purity of body, speech, and thought, endowed with these attributes, etc. No crookedness is in his heart. Subhuti. How does the Bodhisattva's perfect purity of body, speech, and thought take place? The Lord, as those wholesome roots of his go on increasing, to that extent the craftiness of his body, thought, and speech, the crookedness of his body, thought, and speech are being purified by those wholesome roots. By way of his body, he courses well in 3 ways, by way of his speech in 4 ways, by way of his mind in 3 ways. This is the Bodhisattva's perfect purity of body, speech, and thought. And through that perfect purity of body, speech, and thought, he transcends the level of the disciples or practical Buddhas, and he doesn't realize the reality limit endowed with these attributes, etc. He takes upon himself the 12 ascetic practices. Moreover, the irreversible Bodhisattva is not one to attach weight to gain honor and fame, etc. He doesn't attach weight to the triple robe, and he takes upon himself the 12 ascetic practices endowed with these attributes, etc. Non-production in his mind of states which are hostile to the perfections such as meanness, etc. Moreover, in the irreversible Bodhisattva, no thought of meanness arises, nor of immorality, anger, sloth, unconcentratedness, or stupidity, nor does a thought of envy arise in him endowed with these attributes, etc. Moving towards a junction with the perfection of wisdom which is not in conflict with the true nature of dharmas. Moreover, the intelligence of the irreversible Bodhisattva becomes steady and goes deep. With respect, he hears the Dharma from others and unites all of it with the perfection of wisdom. And also all worldly activities he unites, thanks to the perfection of wisdom, with the nature of dharmas. There is not any dharma which he doesn't see as a yoke to the dharma element at all, that he sees as making an effort towards the perfection of wisdom. This should be known as the irreversible marks of the irreversible Bodhisattva. The desire to go into the hells for the good of others. If again Mara, the evil one, conjures up the 8 great hells in front of the irreversible Bodhisattvas, and in each one of them many thousands, etc., to many hundreds of thousands of newtons of Kotis Bodhisattvas burning, boiling, and experiences sharp pains, having conjured them up, he shows them to the Bodhisattva and says to him, "These Bodhisattvas have been predicted as irreversible by the Tathagata. They have been reborn here in the hells. You also have been predicted by the Tathagata to irreversibility, but in fact you have been predicted to rebirth as a being in hell. Reject the thought of enlightenment. Then you will not be born in hell, but you will be one who goes to heaven. If he thought of Bodhisattva, of the Bodhisattva, is not disturbed, if he doesn't hesitate or doubt, then one should know that the Bodhisattva has been predicted by the Tathagatas of the past, that he is predestined to Buddhahood and firmly established in the irreversible element. It is impossible, it cannot be that the irreversible Bodhisattva should be reborn in hell among the animals or in the world of Yama. That cannot possibly be endowed with these attributes, etc. Passions. One cannot be led astray by others. Moreover, approaching in the guise of some Shramana, Mara, the evil one, will say, "What you have learned, that you should purify the perfection of giving, etc., to that you should know full enlightenment, that has been wrongly learned. You must confess that it was erroneous. What you have been told, that you should rejoice at all the wholesome roots of the Tathagatas of the past, future, and present, and of their disciples, beginning from the production of the first thought of enlightenment up to the abiding in their true Dharma. Of that you must confess it was erroneous, that you must reject, that you have heard, that is not the Buddha word, that has not been taught by the full enlightened Buddha. It is mere poetry. What it teaches, the Buddha word, that is as taught by the Tathagata. If the Bodhisattva, the great being, is agitated, hesitates, and doubts, and should know that the Bodhisattva, this great being, has surely not been predicted by the Tathagata, etc., not fixed, surely is that Bodhisattva, nor is he established in the irreversible element. But if he, Bodhisattva, the great being, doesn't get agitated, doesn't hesitate and doubt, but does flee back to the true nature of Dharma, to the unconditioned, to non-production, that he doesn't put his faith in someone else, then he doesn't go by someone else whom he puts his trust in, as concerns the 6 perfections, etc., to enlightenment. Just as an arhat, with his elbows dried up, does not go by someone else whom he puts his trust in, but places the true nature of Dharma directly before his eyes and cannot be assailed by Mara, the evil one. Just so, Subhuti, does the irreversible Bodhisattva become uncrushable by persons belonging to the disciple or particular Buddha vehicle. He cannot, by his nature, go back on the Supreme Enlightenment. He is predicted to Buddhahood and firmly established in the irreversible element, and he becomes someone who doesn't go by someone else whom he puts his trust in. He doesn't go by his faith in the Tathagata, how much less in those who belong to the disciple vehicle or practical Buddha vehicle, how much less in Mara and the evil one, how much less in the heretical wanderers. It is impossible that he should trust in them. And why? Because he doesn't review any Dharma in which he could put his faith and be it form, etc., to the substance of enlightenment. Endowed with these attributes, tokens, and signs, the Bodhisattva should be known as irreversible. One recognizes the Marahood of Mara when he points out a counterfeit path. Moreover, Subhuti, Mara, the evil one, approaching in the guise of a monk, will say to the Bodhisattva and Great Being, wandering in birth and death is this, and not the wandering of the Bodhisattva. Just here do you, monk, make an end of ill. And again, that Mara, the evil one, will expound to the Bodhisattva counterfeit of the path. He expounds this counterfeit path by worldly modes belonging to the plane of birth and death, of the perception of bonds, the first trance, etc., to the fourth formless attainment. He says that this, your worship, is the path These are its progressive steps. Through this path, through these progressive steps, you will reach the fruit of extreme winner, etc., to our hardship. Through this path, through these progressive steps, do you make just here an end of ill. No longer will you experience those sufferings which belong to the plane of birth and death. Surely you will first of all not produce this personality of yours. How would you think of taking hold of another personality? If again, Subhuti, the thought of the Bodhisattva, the great being, is not agitated and doesn't waver. And if in addition he thinks to himself, very helpful to me is this monk who expounds a counterfeit to the holy path. That counterfeit path is not conductive to the realization of the fruit of extreme winner, etc., to of arhatship or particular Buddha enlightenment, etc., to of full enlightenment. He then laughs, very helpful to me is that monk who expounds attachment to me. When I have understood that attachment, I should train in all the three vehicles. That when Mara, the evil one, has noticed the laughter of the Bodhisattva, the great being, he says to him, "You wish, son of good failure, to see the Bodhisattva, the great beings who have presented to Buddhas and Lords countless as the sense of the Gangas, robes, arms, bows, lotions, medicinal appliances for use in sickness, who have in the presence of Tathagatas countless as the sense of Gangas, fulfill the six perfections, who have honored questions and counter questions, Buddhas and Lords countless as the sense of Ganga, for the sake of this very Bodhisattva vehicle." Asking, how should the Bodhisattva, the great being, stand in the Bodhisattva vehicle while coursing in the six perfections? Their applications of mindfulness, etc., to the great compassion, they have stood, coursed, made efforts in that which those Buddhas and Lords have taught, and yet to this very day not known full enlightenment, and he as though they have been thus instructed, have thus stood, thus trained, they have not reached the knowledge of all modes. How then will you reach full enlightenment ever? If when he is thus being dissuaded, the Bodhisattva undergoes no change of heart, if he remains unafraid, and if in addition he loves and says to himself, very helpful to me is this monk who expounds attachment to me and who suggests that through this attachment the fruit of extreme winner, etc., to the knowledge of all modes can be reached, then Mara, the evil one, having noticed the uncountness of his mind, conjured up a great many monks in that very spot of earth, and says, all these arahats with their outlaws dried up, who have set out for the supreme enlightenment, but they have all stopped short at arhatship. How will you ever know full enlightenment? But if it occurs to the Bodhisattva, the great being, surely Mara, the evil one, expounds the counterfeit path, then coursing in perfection of wisdom, he doesn't go back on the supreme enlightenment, doesn't fall back on the level of a disciple, particular Buddha, and in addition it occurs to him, it is impossible, it cannot be that the Bodhisattva, the great being who courses in the perfection of giving, etc., who develops the knowledge of all modes, doesn't fully know the supreme enlightenment, that cannot possibly be supreme Dharma. He takes up the progressive practice in which everywhere the Buddhas have rejoiced. Moreover, the Bodhisattva who courses in perfect wisdom thinks to himself, if having trained as the Tathagata has taught, if not like in this practice one dwells in attention associated with these perfections, then one will not fail in the six perfections, etc., to the knowledge of all modes. Moreover, the Bodhisattva thinks to himself, one who recognizes the deeds of Mara, he doesn't fail in the supreme enlightenment, endowed with these attributes, etc. The marks of irreversibility of one who stands on the path of vision. Passion, acceptance of the cognition of Dharma in ill, rejection of understanding Dharmas as form, etc. Subhuti, wherefrom does the irreversible Bodhisattva turn away? The Lord. He turns away from the perfection of form and the other skandhas, of the animal sense fields, etc., of the Buddha. And why? Because the irreversible Bodhisattva, through dharmas which are empty of all marks, enters on the certainty that he will win salvation as a Bodhisattva. He doesn't apprehend even then dharma, and so he cannot put it together or produce it. One therefore says that a Bodhisattva who patiently accepts non-production is irreversible. Endowed with these attributes, tokens, and signs, should a Bodhisattva be known as irreversible. This is the end of 49th chapter of the Large Sutra on Perfect Wisdom, the Satasahasrika Prajnaparamita Sutram.